Can I thank the Chief Constable, Jo Farrell, and members of her senior leadership team for joining me today for this public accountability meeting. The focus of this meeting will be around driving under the influence of alcohol and drugs and the wider road safety agenda. Illegal and hazardous driving is happening on our roads regularly and is brought to my attention by local residents and elected members at numerous community and public meetings I attend as part of my role. Drink and drug driving on the roads can ultimately lead to death and seriously injured on people on our roads, and consequently making 2 of the fatal 4 causes of those killed on our roads. It's the recklessness of these particular individuals that endanger those using our roads and devastating lives. It's so important that we raise awareness around the dangers and practices on our roads that increase the risk of being killed and seriously injured. And we've already done a lot of work to reduce the numbers of road traffic collisions across County Durham and Darlington, but we know there's still a long way to go. The majority of these collisions are preventable, so education is paramount to raise awareness that it's not only car drivers that have the responsibility to follow the highway code. We all have a part to play in keeping each other safe, whether you're a passenger of a vehicle, a pedestrian, a cyclist, or any other road user. We all have the power to make a difference. A staggering number of people are killed and seriously injured on UK roads. That's why Road Safety Week is such an important campaign. And I'm delighted that we've been able to work with Break to get these messages out, and I hope that the roadshow will enable us to engage with our local communities and share the road safety advice with them. Myself and my team are keen to meet local residents and hear about road safety concerns in their area and to share our road safety advice. Over the last few weeks, in fulfilling my ongoing commitment to be open and transparent in conducting my duties, I've given the residents of County Durham and Darlington the opportunity to put forward any questions and comments to me about driving under the influence and the wider road safety concerns. I'm really pleased to say that we've had a good response to this public consultation, which has included useful comments as well as questions residents would like Durham Constabulary to respond to in more detail. A full recording of this meeting, including all questions and answers, will be uploaded on YouTube after this meeting and will be made available to the public. The recorded meetings will enable residents to see how the accountability process works and also the role the PCC plays in delivering an efficient and effective police service by scrutinising the performance of the force and ensuring it is responsive to the needs of residents of County Durham and Darlington. I trust that this open and transparent approach enables me to give residents the opportunity to raise what matters most to them, so I can hold the Chief Constable to account on their behalf to make County Durham and Darlington safer, stronger and more resilient to crime, drugs and antisocial behaviour. I want to take this opportunity to thank everyone who submitted questions around this subject. For those who provided me with a name and address along with your question, I will ensure that my office provides you with a personal response on my behalf. Now it would be useful for me just to talk through the format of who is in attendance today at this accountability meeting. In a few minutes, I will invite the Chief Constable, Jo Farrell, to say a few words and provide some operational context and background information on this subject and introduce her team. There then will be a presentation around half an hour delivered by Superintendent Andrea Arthur and Inspector Kevin Slater of the Strategic Roads Policing Unit. Following this presentation, I will read out a selection of questions and will direct them to the Chief Constable and her team to provide responses. It was noted that some of the questions that we received in my office had a very similar themes, so these have been grouped together and paraphrased, but I hope they'll answer most of the common concerns and queries that we've received. The meeting is expected to last about 90 minutes, and I do hope that members of the public will find the content of the presentation useful to assist them in having a better understanding about how I will continue to hold the force to account and to address local policing issues and to ensure Durham Constabulary is an efficient and effective police force. I will now hand over to Chief Constable Jo Farrell to say a few words. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Very pleased that we're able to present today in relation to roads policing and community safety issues. We all know that given most people drive or use the road in some way, that they have a real interest in this area in relation to safety, reducing harm, and we will demonstrate to you today what we're doing in relation to prevention and education. There's some quite hard-hitting facts, figures, and also some video within the presentation, which shows you the ongoing challenge that we have in relation to things like drug driving. In addition to that, we'll demonstrate how we use roads policing and the tactics around roads policing to tackle criminality on our roads. And we'll also talk about issues around antisocial behaviour and antisocial use of the roads and what we do in relation to tackling those issues. The PCC's talked about the interest that this particular topic has from the public. And I know that this and our response to issues around road safety, reducing harm, goes a long way to giving people the confidence that Durham Police are very active in this space, and we'll be able to demonstrate that to you during the morning. We'll also talk about where we've invested additional resources and technology in this space and how we're supported by our community volunteers and our special constables. So it's a collective response, and Superintendent Arthur and Inspector Salter are very, very skilled and experienced in this space, and I'm sure people agree with me at the end of the presentation that they'll be able to demonstrate how much effort and focus and how we prioritise this area of policing. So looking forward to being able to share the presentation with everybody. Thank you.
Thanks, Jo. Just as we start, it would be worth just going around the table, just introduce yourself for the public so they know who's in the room with you.
Yeah, should we start with Gary?
Hi, everybody. Gary Ridley, Assistant Chief Officer for the Force and Chief Finance Officer to the PCC.
Morning, everybody. I'm Kieran Irving. I'm the Deputy Chief Constable.
Good morning. Sorry. Thank you. Good morning, everybody. I'm Kevin Salter. I'm an Inspector on the Roads and Armed Policing Unit.
Morning, I'm Andrea Arthur. I'm the Superintendent for the Roads and Armed Policing Unit.
Good morning, Sheena Irwin, Head of Plan for Governance and Insights for the Constabulary.
Thanks, everyone. And I think it's straight over to you, Andrea.
Just load the presentation. Good morning. The Durham Constabulary is wholly committed with our partners to protect the road users in County Durham and Darlington. Education plays a key role in how road users can keep themselves and others safe. But what actually is impact a road user? Well, in the most simplistic of terms, that's all of us. Whichever way you travel, whether it be on foot, as a driver or a passenger in a car, by bus, cycle, motorcycle, you are in fact a road user. And this definition is important to understand, as quite often people think of road users as simply the car drivers. As part of our role in education, Durham Constabulary participate in national road safety campaigns arranged by the National Police Chiefs Council. We deliver education packages to the most vulnerable on the roads, and we take opportunities to educate following tragic incidents, such as the horrifying collision on the A1, where 3 people tragically lost their lives. We monitor emerging trends, which provide us with the ability to establish areas of concern, which can and does impact on our road safety within the region, to take both a preventative and problem-solving approach to support our collective vision of every day without a road death. Outlined here is the MPCC's National Police and Prevention Strategy. All of the work carried out by Durham's Road and Armed Policing Unit is in support of the 4 outcomes of the strategy, alongside the National Road Policing Strategy. As previously highlighted, education and preventative work carried out by officers aims to reduce demand by reducing the incidents on our roads and creating that cultural change so that everyone behaves in a way to keep everyone safe on our road network. We, the police, well, we can't be everywhere all of the time, so we need road users to use the road safely, not just because they might get caught, but rather because it's the right thing to do. On average, 5 people are killed on our roads nationally every day, and many more suffer life-changing injuries. Traumatic, unexpected, and often preventable deaths on our roads devastate the victims, their families, and our communities. Preventing harm and saving lives is at the core of what we do, and this includes preventing offending. We also use our enforcement powers to prosecute offenders and tackle drivers who break the law by engaging in behaviour that causes harm. This means the crimes that cause the death and serious injuries on the road, but also offences like speeding, or failing to wear your seatbelt, or when you're distracted from driving through impairment through drink or drugs. These might be considered lower end offending, but they are in fact key contributing factors in many of our road collisions. We target criminal use of the road network. It's a key strategic priority for the force. As an example, this week we've got a cross-command, intelligence-led operation running in the Darlington area to disrupt criminality. We're using county line methodology to tackle drug dealing using the roads network. Often, vulnerable people are recruited by criminals, and by tackling the supply network, we will disrupt the organised crime, will safeguard those who are being exploited, and will prevent further victims from happening. As another example, every month we've got a joint operation running with our public protection unit to check on high-risk sex offenders, to target their vehicle use, proactively gather intelligence, and address any breaches of any offences. Again, it's just another example of the work that the Roads and Armed Policing Unit contribute to. Lots of what we do is led by an evidence-based problem-solving approach, such as Operation Endurance, tackling the criminal and antisocial use of off-road bikes, or the problem-solving around identifying vulnerable locations within the county, or maybe just simply campaigns to issue drivers with MOT certificates to remind the drivers of the date of their MOT, which reduces cars that are unworthy and in turn reduces our AMPR activations of cars with no valid MOT certificate. This supports the Police and Crime Commissioner's key priority in working with the Chief Constable to establish safer roads in County Durham and Darlington. Data collection and analysis is crucial to establish the exact level of issue and threats on stretches of road, which, supported by community intelligence, ensures that we're deploying our resources in key areas of risk. Social media is a key part in sharing messages. Almost everyone now has access to social media tools, and it allows us to engage with an online community. I welcome everyone, if you haven't already, to check out our cleverly titled Durham Road and Armed Policing social media pages if you haven't already. The messages that we post on there are often shared by others, which then reaches people who may not follow the policing pages. We encourage and we provide the opportunity for communities to have their input and to take part in road safety campaigns, which all benefits the local area. These areas of concern are often brought about through packed meetings, or maybe it's just discussions with local officers whilst they're out and about on patrol. By working in partnerships with local, town and county councillors or community groups to engage in road safety issues, it helps us to consider different options for target hardened and vulnerable locations. Volunteers can and they do play a really big part in keeping our roads safe, and being the eyes and ears within the community, or providing vital intelligence, as well as carrying out activities such as Community Speed Watch. We're also incredibly fortunate to be supported within the unit by a team of dedicated, highly trained special constables. So this graph highlights where we are for the total road collisions for County Durham and Darlington. As you can see there, I've included 3 years worth of data for comparison. But just for note, for this year, the data is up to and including of August. This chart shows the total collisions within County Durham and Darlington, and I've broken it down into total collisions for the year and then the number of killed and serious injured on the roads. The number of killed and serious injuries from the current year compared to last year has shown a steady decrease, and the number of total collisions in the current year shows a greater decrease, and it's also continued to decrease.
This chart shows our casualties by age group across Durham and Darlington. Nationally, it's recognised that the most vulnerable and at-risk age group is 16 to 25 years. However, in County Durham and Darlington, if we look a little bit closer at our data, the risk group is actually wider in extension 16 to 35. As such, we've identified this and we're doing as much as we can to target that age bracket, such as learn and live educational programs in colleges, age-specific media campaigns, making the best use of social media platforms to target our audience, such as Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And we attend as many community events as we can in an attempt to get those important messages out. Within this data, we've identified another high harm group of those aged 11 to 15 years to even younger, and as such, we've tried to reduce this number and prevent casualties in the future by creating and implementing an educational package delivered in all secondary schools by teachers, which is focused on being an independent traveller, and this will be delivered across the entire county in the very near future. The package is aimed to educate young people on how to keep themselves and others safe on the roads whilst travelling to and from school, and that may be whether they're cycling or getting on a bus or being a passenger in a car. We're now in the process of editing the package to suit those even younger, and which is going to be placed in primary schools. Again, just target that earlier age bracket, and again, this will be delivered right across the county. The Fatal 4, this is the department's bread and butter, and it's something that we focus on all year round in our aim to prevent serious injury and road death. In County Durham and Darlington, each aspect of the Fatal 4 account for around 20 to 25% of the causation of our collisions. The first one, speeding, we all know it kills, and only a few miles an hour over the speed limit can make a significant difference to the actual outcome. Tackling speeding issues is very important to us at Durham Constabulary, and there's a lot of investment by the force in this area. We've got a full team dedicated to catching those offenders and processing speed offences. We have 3 camera vans which are out every single day in different parts of our county, which are placed in our problematic locations. The force is currently investing in additional staff to increase the size of this team. It now has its own dedicated inspector. All of our traffic cars and motorcycles have speed detection equipment installed, and we've been training our neighbourhood policing colleagues in mobile lasers around the force so that more can join in and contribute in the fight against speeding. Second one, mobile phones. Studies are consistently showing that this is as bad as drug and drink driving. However, it doesn't seem to carry the same social stigma in our communities. It's our aim to change this and make it socially unacceptable. We'll show you what we've been doing a little bit later on in the presentation. Everyone should know that the laws change with regards to mobile phones. You simply cannot touch them anymore. All the excuses of picking it up to check the time, change the music, it's not allowed. It's against the law, so please leave it in your glove box. Seatbelts, you're twice as likely to die if involved in a collision, and the department have witnessed many scenes over the years where people will be alive today had they been wearing it. Also, remember in my previous slide with regards to the younger children being casualties from collisions, some of these are due to them not being restrained correctly in the vehicles. I'm sure you'll agree this is unacceptable. There's no excuse. There's plenty of advice out there, and if one of our officers see you, then please expect a robust approach. The final one, drinking drugs. On the 28th of June, the legislation's changed from 14 years to life in prison should you cause death by careless or dangerous driving whilst under the influence of drinking drugs. All of our traffic vehicles have breathalyzers with them, and the force have invested even further to put more on the locality. So every police officer across the force does have access. This also includes access to the roadside drug wipes. We're fast approaching this festive time of year again, and we'll be out in mass with planned operations carrying out lots of stop checks across the county. We see lots of people we wouldn't ordinarily expect are caught out this time of year during Christmas parties, either by having one too many at the time and attempting to drive home afterwards, or driving to work the next day. So please think, it's a criminal conviction, potentially a loss of your job, a driving ban, higher insurance premiums when you do get your licence back, or as you've just heard, life in prison should it go wrong for you. Our advice to Durham Constabulary is, if you're consuming alcohol and needing to drive home or driving early the next day, then don't drink any alcohol at all. It's really difficult to judge when you will or won't be over the drink drive limit.
So although driving under the influence of alcohol or drugs accounts for around 20% of the causation reason for collisions where people are killed and seriously injured, the number of arrests are much greater. This graph here shows the total number of arrests. It does include those not involved in collisions, so this is total number of arrests, not just the ones result from collisions. You can see that the current number of arrests there in yellow would generally follow in the other year's patterns, but we are starting to decrease. Again, COVID had an impact on the change of patterns of people's behaviour. However, we do hope that people are deeming this type of driving socially unacceptable, therefore reflecting the numbers shown, as we are statistically testing the same number of drivers. This is what the NPCC action calendar looks like. We participate in all of the national campaigns and we provide returns for the number of drivers engaged with, educated and enforcement activity. You can see there that there are two main periods of time which we focus on driving under the influence, August being the summer campaign and the whole of December being the Christmas campaign. This year, though, the Christmas campaign will begin in November to cover the World Cup. So effectively, we're going to be running the Christmas campaign this year for a 6-week period. To give you some examples of what officers are unfortunately still dealing with and some real body-worn video footage from across the county. Please remember whilst you're watching it that the legal limit for drink driving when testing breath is below 35 micrograms per 100 millilitres of breath.
So how come you've driven the car? You've only had a couple of pints?
I went out for a KFC, if I'm honest.
All right, okay.
I went over the limit after drive and I'm 50.
You just send everywhere.
Is this your car?
Yes.
I take it, have you had the accident, have you?
No accident, no.
You've hit a road sign?
No, that's not. No, I haven't.
You have. You see, you're on top of a road sign.
What? Oh, sorry.
Stand back
Sorry.
up. 103.
103.
Aye.
Digging more than a few pints, I think. Oh well.
What does 103 mean?
That means you're nearly 3 times over the drink drive limit.
Not a chance.
Yeah.
Really?
Fortunately so, yeah, that's what we're
I've had
getting
like
told.
3 pints.
Right.
You better look after my little girl.
Why have I got to look after you? Other than your little
My
girl.
little-
All right. Why aren't you looking after your little
I don't
girl?
give a f about me.
Why aren't you looking after your little girl?
Oh yeah. If you can't, then let me out. Let me.
Right. You've blown 185. All right.
Which is
so that's
dangerous.
way over the limit.
dangerous, yeah.
All right. So because
Yeah,
of
way
that,
dangerous.
the time is now 12 o'clock. You are now under arrest for drink
Way
driving.
dangerous. I don't care. I'm sick. I'm a road thank you.
It doesn't give you the right though to drive a car when you're intoxicated. What if you'd have crashed into another car with a mother and a baby and that? Would you be bothered then?
I'm
Would you
not
bothered? You're not bothered. Okay, that's fine.
I couldn't care less. I couldn't care.
You couldn't care less.
No.
Why don't you go and find some criminals that are stabbing people tonight, that are doing horrible things to people?
Well, we're actually part of the road policing unit, so part of our thing is road safety and stopping potential drink drivers is part of that.
I'm not a drink driver, so there we go.
That footage undoubtedly speaks for itself. Here are a couple of updates from the list. All persons you've seen were arrested, they were put before the court and disqualified from driving. But the guy that decided to go and get himself a KFC, blew 73 an hour Kamek machine, he spent the night in our cells, was given a criminal record and fined a total of £442, given a 20-month disqualification. The male who blew an astonishing 185, which is 5 times over the drink drive limit, spent some long hours in our cells sobering up. He was given a 12-month suspended prison sentence, disqualified for 24 months. He had to pay £85 in costs and £128 victim surcharge. Our main concern was the little girl, the male referred to in the video. Thankfully, she wasn't in the car. He wasn't caring for a child at the time. Otherwise, the consequence would have been far different for him. When officers checked, the child was actually at home, being cared for by somebody else who was 16 years of age. Our partnership working is invaluable to us, and together we know we can do more. We're part of County Durham and Darlington's Road Safety Partnership Group, which is made up of the Police, Highways, Durham and Darlington Councils, Fire and Rescue Service, and we meet regularly with an expert data analyst to look for trends within our area to identify any areas of problem of concern. We share ideas amongst one another and come together to plan and run road safety initiatives, all to make our roads safer. In addition, we also take part in a regional group named Road Safety GB North East, and again we work together to promote and tackle road safety at a regional level. We also report our data and results to a national hub where we're held to account and take part in national meetings and campaigns. Community, top right, you'll see this is also on there, and you are our most important partner. We recognise that criminals use the road network. They have to move around one way or another to do what they do. And this is where another side of our department comes in. And we take every opportunity using our skills, our vehicles, our specialist equipment to target those organised crime groups, disrupting criminality as much as we can, whilst keeping our roads safe. That's where we need you. Your intelligence is vital. Criminals are constantly changing their cars, and you can help us continue to be one step ahead. For our officers, there's nothing more rewarding than taking a criminal off our roads. This is just a very small example of how we come together in regular occurrence with our partners to identify and react to a local problem. Through our data analyst, we discovered that there was multiple collisions happening on this B6277 road that leads from Middleton and Teesdale to the Cumbrian border. All the incidents involved motorcycles. We worked with our partners to create an educational video of the route, which shows the hazards along the way. It also shows the riders how to position themselves whilst riding along that stretch of road. This was then placed on YouTube for our bikers to see, and the link was advertised by our social media platforms and placed available to anyone visiting the area on the tourist websites, leaflets, in the cafes where the bikers frequent. The road is analysed by our experts, and permanent additional signs and markings have now been erected to the hazard points. Our motorcycle unit have attended the area to carry out Op Educate, ensuring those important safety messages go out to the bikers. This year to date, the initiative has been a success, and we hope it continues in the future. This is Project Edward. It's a national campaign and stands for Every Day Without a Road Death, and it's something that we take part in every year. We've just hosted the North East contingent on day 5 of the British Tour Boatburn service with our partners, including the PCC's office, promoting road safety. And we had over 150 engagements that day, which we felt was beneficial and a success. It gained a lot of publicity promoting those vital safety messages. There's too many initiatives for me to go into that we are involved in to discuss today, but I'll mention a few. We've got Operation Close Pass, which you can see on the screen there, top left. This is an educational enforcement operation where police officers and PCSOs go out and about on a bike to specifically identify motorists that aren't sticking our 1.5 metre rule. The guilty motorists are then stopped and dealt with accordingly by a supporting team. And we also make best use of our VR goggles to educate them at the roadside. Operation Tramline, which is the middle one there, we use a HGV cab on our arterial routes to identify road users committing road-related offences. The HGV cab gives us the height so we can look down at the cars and spot people. We focus on the fatal 4 offences, and we engage, educate and enforce, trying to get those important messages. Bike Safe, that's something that we're in the process of regenerating for the next season, where our motorcycle team educate other bikers on how to ride safely. They may be lacking in confidence or just want to improve themselves. We work with our partners to provide free books after completion of the police training course, and they get discounts to go on and do their advanced course should they want to. Just a quick update on Operation Endurance, Durham's award-winning problem-solving initiative to tackle off-road nuisance and airspeed. We are lucky enough within Durham to have a motorcycle unit, and many other forces don't. It's going from strength to strength with the support of the force investing greatly in the department. The force have increased the numbers of motorcycle officers from 4 to 5, and we now have 6 due to commence in the unit, increasing our capability. The force have supplied additional motorcycles to the fleet, which includes a further off-road bike to tackle airspeed. The Commissioner has granted £10,000 to assist us. We've now got ANPR technology installed on all of our bikes to help us tackle criminality on our roads. We purchased stingers for every single bike, and they've been especially adapted so that we can carry them at all times, so our bikers can end pursuits quickly and safely. We've launched Garage Watch, so please look out for the posters in your local petrol stations. This is a scheme to help to prevent the sale of fuel to anybody on an off-road bike that enters a forecourt at the petrol station. We've also launched 59 signs allowing us to seize vehicles committing ASB on the first occasion, and they're going out and up and about all around your county, so please look out for them. There's lots of hard work from our neighbourhood teams to identify and catch those responsible, and our end-of-year data indications certainly show that the investment and hard work and efforts are paying off. Operation Snap, top left with the dash cam there. This is one of our Commissioner's priorities, and I know she's very passionate about this subject. What is Operation Snap? Operation Snap is an online platform that will allow members of the public to simply submit their dash cam or helmet footage to us to report instances of bad driving. We then assess that footage and take appropriate action against the driver. Dash cam referrals have been accepted by Durham Constabulary for quite some time. However, we're currently in the process of relaunching this initiative as we recognise the value of this scheme, and we're investing significantly in systems and staff which will allow us to educate and process more bad driving than ever before. Where are we now? We've carried out lots of work nationally to look at best practice and learn from other forces' mistakes. We've been working closely with our national expert, Dr. Helen Wells from Keele University, all to ensure Operation Snap is launched successfully in Durham. The force has been investing in additional staff to create a dedicated team specifically to service this function. The force have invested in software which will easily allow members of the public to upload footage to our website. This also generates a statement, so no police officer has to visit, saving valuable time. The force have invested in processing software which will allow the new team to process footage and offences efficiently. We are on schedule to have this up and running by the very start of January 2023. And like the superintendent says, or has already said, we cannot be everywhere at once, but this will allow us to have more eyes and ears out there on the roads than ever before. And as a department, we're really excited about launching it again. Community Speed Watch. This is an integral to our process in identifying problematic areas. We need the support of the public to do it. Remember, only a few slides back, I said the camera vans are placed only where there's an issue. Well, this is one of the methods we use prior to deployment of the camera van, ensuring the issue is actually present before we attend. The force has recently invested in new modern speed watch equipment and distributed it around the neighbourhood policing teams. The equipment is much lighter and user-friendly. And if you are interested in community speed watch, then please contact one of your local neighbourhood policing teams. This video, which is on the screen now, we're about to show you in July 2021. Ian O'Nutt was the driver of a HGV travelling northbound on the A1M in County Durham. He was just an ordinary guy, a guy who'd never been in trouble before, a guy who'd set out to work that day to earn a living, just like he normally would, with no intention of causing the utter devastation that he did. O'Nutt was looking down at his mobile phone and failed to see several motorway signs warning drivers congestion ahead. And whilst travelling at 58 miles an hour, he ploughed at the stationary traffic, instantly killing 3 innocent people. O'Nutt was charged with 3 offences of causing death by dangerous driving. He pleaded guilty at the first appearance at Crown Court and received a 9-year custodial sentence. This video was generated by our staff on the front line. And it is really important to point out that it wasn't from management asking them to do it. They wanted to produce it themselves because they're passionate about road safety and they wanted to make a difference. Teams do care a great deal and they've worked extremely hard to produce this with our media team, a lot of work done in their own time. This is just a snippet of what was created.
I'm on the motorway. I think you'll already have a million calls about an accident.
Because of
Vehicle that's been hit by the heavy.
Tell you what we're dealing with. Can I please declare this now a major incident?
My wife came in sort of early in the morning, 5, 6ish, something like that, and she handed me the phone, and on the other end of the phone was a dad, and then he told me that initially my mum had been involved in a car accident and had died, and then he told me my dad had also been killed. Yeah, it's pretty bad, and you don't know if you've never had to go through this process before. You've never had to plan funerals, you've never had to do all that sort of stuff. You just deal with it however you deal with it. I don't think there's certainly no right or wrong answer, but I don't know if there's a way of explaining it. You just kind of got to muddle on.
To take one thing that's affected me most about the case, it's got to be going to the families. Like, how do you sit and show someone them getting killed?
Your life changes from being you're happy and having your normal life outside to being nowadays being in a prison, having a sentence over 8 years to do. It's really hard. I've never been involved in anything like it. I've never been breathalyzed in this country. In 14 years, I've never been breathalyzed. I never had a problem with police or nothing. And then just shows you for using your mobile phone while you're driving. It happens, and then you're here in a prison, away from the real world and friends and family. I never had a chance to apologize, to say sorry to anybody who they lost their loved ones.
Thanks, Kev. I just at this point, want to say that I met Natalie yesterday, obviously following her award, and I read this out that I'd received following that, because I know it's quite a challenge to whether we put video, quite hard-hitting video like that, like into the public. And this was a message I received, said, hope you're well. I've just probably watched the most distressing and thought-provoking film on the crash of Boburn, published by Durham Police. Whilst my thoughts and prayers are with those who died and their families, I feel compelled to congratulate Durham Constabulary for a very sensitive and yet powerful message to all about the decisions we take and the impact they have on everyone. Please pass my thanks on to all. And I know it's, like I said, for those who are involved in that, it is a very challenging part of their workload, but it's really good when we receive letters like that or appreciation from members of the public who getting that message out to try and prevent other people following suit and doing similar things. It's been really appreciated. And thank you very much for sharing the video.
Thank you. It was a tragic fatality where David Dalgleish, Elaine Sullivan and Paul Mullen tragically lost their lives that day at the hands of Mr. Ronan, the HGV driver, distracted using his mobile phone. I agree the footage couldn't be any more distressing, and it clearly shows the risks of driving whilst distracted and the consequences of such action. The investigation, as you can imagine, was extremely complex, and the offender is now rightly so serving his time in prison, his sentence. But the team, on finalising the case, they knew they wanted to do more, and they knew that more could be done to prevent future such tragedies occurring. And that's where the idea came from, to use the extensive amount of footage that we had. We had obviously body cam footage, dash cam footage from officers at the scene, NPAS, drone coverage, and it was all used to produce that hard-hitting educational video. The officers liaised closely with the family members of those involved, and we were so grateful in receiving their support to allow the footage to be shared in the public domain. The idea was obviously picked up by the BBC and produced and shown on BBC iPlayer, as well as the creation from our own media team, which was shown on Durham Constabulary's YouTube page. The reach of that video has been absolutely phenomenal. Initially on Facebook, the reach of the post was 3.1 million people. 7,000 individuals then further shared that video. And YouTube alone, our own internal video, had 255,400 views of that video. We were asked to publicise the documentary on both local news, which I went on to do on the night time, and that was 6 million people watched that. And then the following morning, Kevin Healy obviously went to National Breakfast TV with DT Corner, and again 7.5 million people watched that. It hasn't stopped there though, and we're delighted the video has been used to train others. Amongst others, the Ministry of Defence, the School of Transport, ECM Vehicle Delivery Service in Carlisle, SCUTEC Testing, Inspection Certificate Services, youth offending teams, many more haulage firms, driving instructors, partner agencies are all using the video to educate the public on the dangers of distracted driving. And you've obviously just talked about the awards there, and I was overjoyed. DC Natalie Horner pictured, she recently received the Outstanding Contribution to Road Safety Award that was given by UK ROED, the road offenders, presented there by Chief Constable Joe Shiner, who's the National League for Road Safety. Chief Constable Shiner also added her personal gratitude in the completion and creation of the video, and reinforced the national contribution that's made to road safety, including in the fact that she used segments of the film in her own presentations. These are just some of the comments that obviously echo what the Commissioner's just said in relation to the positivity that's being received from the force around the making of the video. Unlike any other crime that we deal with, road users are both potential victims and they're also potential offenders every single day. Public, you are our most influential partner in road safety, as Kevin's already said, and we need your help to try and make our roads safer. My commitment from Durham Roads and our policing unit is an ongoing commitment to tackle the harm caused in our road network. The force shares this commitment, and it's clear throughout the presentation the investment that's been made in our roads and our policing unit, our increase in officer numbers, our increase in motorcycle section. And alongside this, we're investing in the staff to make sure that they've got all the correct skills all the correct equipment, training and capacity and capability to deliver road safety for the organisation. Thanks very much for your time and opportunity to present to you today. Unfortunately, obviously the video didn't run as smoothly as we hoped, but we hope that we were able to express how much we've been working hard towards contribution towards road safety in general. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It was such a comprehensive presentation, and I think I would encourage residents to follow the Durham Roads and Armed Policing that you mentioned earlier in the presentation, Andrea, on social media, and also the Operation Endurance. I find them very, very helpful, very engaging and very informative. So definitely would want to post and encourage people to follow those. It's very pleasing to hear about the full range of work your team are doing to reduce the numbers of killed and seriously injured on our roads. And also, whilst recognising the important role that volunteers play in keeping our roads safe and encouraging road users to keep the speed to the speed limit. And I'm sure that residents will really welcome the recent changes to the law that has increased the maximum sentence from 14 years to life. I think your key message is about don't drink and drive. The risks are too high, and I'm sure the public will be shocked but reassured that our roads and armed policing unit are getting these drivers off the roads and taking enforcement action against those who flout the law. However, as you say, that community intelligence is the key, and we urge residents to let us know about those who are drinking and drug driving, to ring 101 or Crime Stoppers on 0800 555 111. I really welcome the update that you've just given around Operation Snap and all the preparatory work that you've done to ensure its successful implementation. As you say, we can't be at all places at all times, but this capability will help us be more places at more times and help us identify those who are driving dangerously on our roads. As we saw from the hard-hitting and distressing footage we've just seen following the multiple collision on the motorway, dash cam can provide really valuable evidence to secure conviction and hold those to account for dangerous driving. And I'm really convinced that the more people who have dash cams, sports cams, will make our roads safer for drivers, riders and also pedestrians. There's nowhere to hide in County Durham and Darlington because the partnership work is exceptional between police, partners and the public, who all take road safety very seriously. And as Police and Crime Commissioner, I will continue to invest and support in our road policing teams. Road safety, speeding was one of the residents' top 5 priorities. So with that, the support is there to work with the professionals who know what the issues are, who know what needs to be done and how I can support you, and we've continued that relationship. And what we've just heard is, I know it's just a snapshot of what you do and there's an awful lot more there, but we really appreciate that time that you've given to give us the overview of the presentation, so thank you. I now have to go on to a number of questions, and these are really important because this is what the public have asked me to ask you. And I think the Deputy Chief Constable Kieran Irvin is going to answer them, but please, to come in if you want to add anything to them as well. So the first question, Kieran, is how many members are there of the Community Speedwatch programme and how many deployments have there been this year?
Thanks, Joy. And I just want to sort of pass on or echo your thanks to Andrea and Kev for the detailed work that they've done. A really strong reflection of the work that the teams do over at Spennymoor and beyond. So really pleased to have them with us. I mean, I think in terms of Community Speedwatch, we've got a really strong group across the force area, and currently we've got 112 volunteers. They've contributed over 300 hours of deployment time across the forces, the forces road network, and that is made up of just over 500 deployments, over 44,500 vehicles checked, and warning letters sent to in excess of 3,000 registered keepers. as Kev's already mentioned, and Andrea has, that we've invested in new equipment to make that even better, particularly using additional vans out into the dales and in the countryside areas of the force. And the cooperation between the volunteers and our neighbourhood teams is excellent. But as Kev had said, we can always cope with some more volunteers if people want to come forward and make contact with either the local neighbourhood team or indeed the roads policing unit, so we can bring them on board and do even more in that area.
Thanks, Kieran. And I have to say, welcome that, we talk about partnership work, and I think testament to that is the two, actually three speed watch vehicles that sort of been developed and delivered in County Durham. I think this is with local councillors, with the AAPs, with my support, and it really gives more power to the volunteers' elbow, but also our PCSOs who are using the vehicles as well. And I know myself and the Assistant Chief Constable Tonya, when we met them, said we were the first force in the country to have such vehicles. So again, that just demonstrates that it is a partnership approach, and we do rely on volunteers, but we will invest in the service that they do to help us make our roads safer. That's brilliant. And all the other question is, all the cars seized after arrest, are they going to go to Durham Gate's new custody facility for storage?
Well, I suppose that the short answer to that is no, they won't. In the majority of cases, we have no need to recover vehicles when somebody's arrested for drink driving. The officer who makes the arrest will either move the vehicle to a safe space or put measures in place with the driver for the vehicle to be recovered safely at their own expense and under their own direction. Of course, where that can't happen, then we will take the keys and keep hold of them until the driver is sufficiently sober and safe to drive him or herself, and then they can make arrangements once they've been released from custody. However, on the very rare occasion that the vehicle is either in a dangerous place of itself or it causes a danger to other road users, then we can put measures in place to seize them. We actually don't have a specific power to recover in the case of a drink driving arrest. So there will be other measures and steps that we put in place, and they will go to secure facilities if required. But it's very, very rare that we even recover a vehicle when it comes to a drink drive offence.
Thanks, Kieran. And as we saw from the video, there's some really decent vehicles. The people are driving that. I'm just so pleased that the officers have detected that those people were under the influence and stopped them driving any further. So it's good to know that those vehicles are secured and put into a safe place, but they're not all coming to Durham Gate's new custody facility. Next question is, how are the public and community groups being made aware of road safety initiatives being carried out by the police?
Well, I think in the first instance, hopefully what Andrea's described as part of the presentation, backed up by Kev's detailed description of Project Edward and similar, show that we're in and amongst the community all the time. I think the reception of the video activity following the A1 serious collision shows the reach that we have through our social media channels, running into the millions of views and streams of that video, and of course the national exposure that we got as a consequence of that. But I mean, thankfully those instances are relatively rare, and the important bit to get across is at the tactical level and the more operational pieces that we do, we also focus our efforts in getting them into the media. And recently we've been able to put a number of positive news stories out in relation to crime related arrests and antisocial behaviour related arrests involving the use of quads and off-road motorcycles and similar, recovery of scooters when they've been stolen and such like. And there is a strong relationship between our media team, the Roads and Armed Policing Unit, and the external media. So we really do push those media points out, and thankfully the regional media in terms of print is also very interested in these kinds of stories because of the impact on communities. And then beyond that, using the PR value of the fast cars, the dog handlers, the armed officers, the motorcyclists, we're able to get out to many community events and get out alongside the local neighbourhood policing teams into schools and similar as part of public engagement that we do. And it's important to remember remember the additional resource and investment that's gone into roads and armed policing since May of this year has meant that we've been able to do far more local activity on our local roads as we sort of revamp the unit following a period of change.
Thanks, Kieran. I think as you said that years ago we used to do something. It was the hard-hitting videos from Ireland, and especially targeted at young people. And I've seen, obviously, we've talked about the motorway one, but one of the ones that I know a lot of people were really shocked was the gentleman with his young son just on a Sunday morning cycling and being knocked over by a drug driver. And I think that's shown that this is happening, but also that there's implications and what happens at the end of those people who are found to be drunk driving. But I think that is a good part of the education messages. We do the national things like break week, think, and obviously partnership stuff. But I think part of the work that we've got is that actual footage, what we saw about the drunk drivers on our roads and what the police are doing. So it is, I know it's a bit of a mix, and it's quite a comprehensive range of education that we're trying to do to prevent anybody even getting in the car or even thinking about getting in the car with drink or drugs in the system. Thank you. And we touched upon the volunteers, but how are the police encouraging volunteer action to improve road safety?
Well, hopefully from the presentation that you've seen, that we are really fortunate to have an actively involved community, and the work that the force does and undoubtedly your office does to bring that profile up really helps us. We've got a very, very strong special constabulary contingent within our roads and armed policing function. They're trained in the same way as our regular officers, including even considering moving towards them carrying taser and all of the other equipment that we would expect a regular officer to have. Over 300 hours of dedicated roads policing patrol time has been offered up by those officers. We've already talked in some detail, I think, around community speed watch and the many thousands of vehicles that have been checked in relation to that part of our business, working alongside with volunteers in other areas beyond policing. And I think that those things taken together demonstrate that we are really strong in that space of encouraging people to come forward and assist us in the battle to ensure our roads are as safe as possible. And we try and value that in terms of putting a nod to the work that people do, and we even have a reward for our Road Safety Hero of the Year. So that all those points in place hopefully would demonstrate and reassure that we're getting out into the communities and encouraging people to come forward, volunteer and support us in our efforts.
Thanks, Kieran. And as you just sort of touched upon there, I think the volunteers come in all shapes and sizes, and to have specials actually on the roads police and doing that role in addition to their day job is phenomenal. And I also know that the commitment that we're looking at for next year after the uplift to really look at increasing the special constabulary, and I think hopefully developing and building on the work and support that's already in place and the great team of people that are helping to keep our road safety working alongside our full-time officers. So it's a really welcome update on that part of it as well, with the volunteer actions to improve road safety. The next question is, how do the police work with neighbouring forces to tackle driving under the influence and improving general road safety?
Well, I think in the main it's important to recognise that driving under the influence of drink or drugs and broader road safety behaviours are often very localised matters in a particular force area. Notwithstanding the work that Kev's described in terms of motorcyclists through the summer who will come through the Cleveland, Durham, North Yorkshire into Cumbria areas as part of pleasure riding, and we do work with all forces in the region specifically around those kinds of issues. leadership group within Roads and Armed Policing regularly meet with both partners and colleagues from other forces to discuss our involvement and contribution towards regional and national joint operations. Andrea's talked about the NPCC calendar, which comes into play there. We also share intelligence, not only in relation to people who use the road criminally, but also those people who use the road in an antisocial sense. And on occasion where we do have those drink driver kind of incidents which do cross the force boundaries, and it's no surprise that, you know, when you think about some of the boundary areas between Durham, Northumbria, Durham, Cleveland in particular, they are populous areas where the boundaries themselves are quite soft. So we share that intelligence to make sure we can capture people regardless of which county area that they're in relation to their driving offending. And I think it's safe to say that our links with our neighbouring forces are really strong in this area, not only in terms of specifics around road safety and drink and drug driving, but also in terms of the criminal use of the road and the work that we do cross-border on all occasions.
Thanks, Kieran. And I know we talk about partnership work and you know, the technology that we're using as well with the ANPRs. Having talked to somebody in a neighbouring force, they thought that's what everybody had, what Durham had, and it was quite a surprise when not everybody's the same. And I think that investment's really important, and I think the appreciation of our partners as well to invest in that technology where possible, and that close work, and as you said, with each other to make the roads in the northeast safer, as well as County Durham and Darlington. Next question is, how should the police deal with retrospective reporting of someone who habitually drink and drives?
Well, I think that the first thing to say is that we welcome any and every report that comes to us of somebody who a member of the public believes to be involved in either drink or drug driving. Those individuals are putting not only themselves at risk, but also their passengers and other road users. And it's really important that we continue to get that information. Now, of course, that our ability to prosecute is very much dependent on us catching somebody in the act, and that's unlike a lot of different types of offending whereby we can forensically conduct investigations after the fact and be able to take action. In the case of drink or drugs, you need that snapshot of what's in somebody's system at the point that they're driving. However, what we would say is that it is highly unlikely that somebody will get caught on the first occasion that they drink or drug drive, and they will most likely be habitual offenders, either on the basis of them making determined decisions to drive home whilst drunk or under the influence of drugs, or indeed will have routinely done this type of activity in either careless or a neglectful way. So any piece of intelligence that we can get, whether that be through our live chat function by calling 101, speaking to an officer in person, or a PCSO in person as you might meet them during the course of any other interaction, or even indeed through Crime Stoppers. And I know you've trailed the number as part of the summary to the main presentation. We'll do everything we can, and there's, you know, our Roads and Armed Policing officers will look to undertake activity to identify that driver, and then look to opportunities where we might catch them using our intelligence system, so that we can be most effective in terms of how we place our patrols and our resources. So we really do welcome those reports coming from members of the public.
Thank you, Kieran. Like I say, a lot of people are in those places where they see people drinking or taking drugs and then getting into the car. So we do need, as you say, that community intelligence is vital, and there's a number of ways that people can report it, and we always keen through, I know that the force comms, and also my team with the Police and Crime Commissioner's office, to get that information out and just to ensure that people are encouraged to report people who are drink and drug driving in their communities. My final question, Kieran, is how can the force investigate the possibility that many cars abandoned by the roadside are a result of drink drivers abandoning them?
Well, I think it's important to reflect that it's probably it is no more than a possibility as opposed to a probable outcome when we find abandoned vehicles. When abandoned vehicles are reported to us, we conduct a number of checks either by the control room or through patrolling officers to see if we can identify and find the owner, and then we'll inquire into the circumstances as to why the vehicle has been abandoned. Of course, in the first instance, it's likely to be our main priority that we consider dangers to the public and other road users insofar as whether it's blocking the road or creating some other hazard to members of the public. And then we'd look to investigate and take action to remove that initial threat. But if the intelligence points us in the direction that somebody has been drinking and driving and they've abandoned the vehicle, and I suppose the example might be one that the vehicle that's been driven into a hedge and abandoned, then we'll follow that particular trail. And the law does allow us to take samples and ask for members of the public to undergo tests if we believe that the individual has been driving the car and they've been under the influence at the material time. I won't go into the detail of all the technicalities around that, but it's action that we would take if we felt that an accident had been caused and somebody was under the influence at the time, and then we can work through the relevant steps. We've talked a little bit in the previous answers in relation to recovery, and whilst just for a normal drink drive incident we probably wouldn't recover in most circumstances, some of those other factors that we talked about in terms of whether the vehicle was causing an obstruction or a danger to road users might mean that we would recover, and of course then that gets dealt with as we would do through any other vehicle recovery.
Right, thanks, Kieran. I think that's quite informative, and I'm sure that the resident who asked that question will be, appreciate the comprehensive answer you've just given there. So before I bring this session to a close, Jo, is there anything that you would like to come in before I move on?
Yeah, thank you. Just some final thoughts from me. I think we've been able to demonstrate that we take issues around road safety and reducing harm in that space really, really seriously within Durham Police. The presentation gave you a sort of flavour around data, some hard facts there, examples around specific initiatives, and then also an insight into the ongoing issue around drink and drug driving and the devastating effect it can have on people's lives. And that's a reminder to all of us. But I hope by what we've demonstrated today that people are reassured that we take these issues seriously and continue to have confidence in Durham Police that we will act and react and are proactive in this space. And I'd like to thank the public for all their support and the confidence that they show in us. Thank you.
Thanks, Jo. And so really this brings us to the end of this accountability session. I do hope that the presentation delivered and the questions that have followed have been useful. As your elected Police and Crime Commissioner, promoting safer roads is one of my key priorities in the Police and Crime Plan, and I'm continuing to support Durham Constabulary and partners to tackle the issues of driving under the influence during my term of office. Over the past few weeks, I've shown that my support for the Safer Roads during Break Road Safety Week, and we've been at Barnard Castle Farmers Market, the Dolphin Centre and Durham Services Station. In addition to this, we will be holding road shows to raise awareness around safer road practices, and I will continue to ensure that the force has the necessary resources to pursue, deter and tackle offending on our roads. I strongly support the action taken by Durham Constabulary to pursue those responsible. And as your PCC, I will continue to give the police my total support in tackling driving under the influence and providing effective road safety campaigns. Moving forward, I'm keen to continue to overlay the work of the office, the force and partners, and to enhance cross-partnership working and approach across road safety. Can I finally bring the meeting to a close by thanking the Chief Constable and her team today for their participation and giving us the oversight of what's happening on our roads to tackle drink and drug driving and the wider road safety aspects. Thank you again for your time and input. We really appreciate it, and I'm sure the public will also appreciate the work that you do and continue to do to keep them safe.